So, welcome back to Every Naval Battle in History, and we're going to change the format in this one because Chinese history and places are a little complicated for me. So, I've been very lucky to have the Chinese history expert and man of the internet, Carl Zha, joining us to try and help us out with this. Carl, hello.
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
No worries. So the Three Kingdoms period is very important both in Chinese literature and culture and also its historical implications. And the naval battles run from 199 CE to 272. And there's five of them. And today we're going to tackle Shaxian, the first of them. But Carl, can you set the scene a little bit for us with what the Three Kingdoms period was and why the Han Dynasty declined to set off this period of warfare?
Yeah, so there's actually two Han dynasties. There's a Western Han Dynasty that went prior, and the Eastern Han Dynasty. And this is the Eastern Han Dynasty we're talking about, which ran from 25 AD to 220 AD. So in a span of 200 years, China was largely unified, peaceful. But what happened with that period of peace is that various Chinese gentries gained a lot of power. The land-owning class on the countryside, they accrue large amount of land to themselves, and they avoid paying taxes, and that become a yes.
So
that
nobility not wanting to pay taxes is almost always at the heart of these things.
yes, and that became a problem when more and more Chinese peasantry became tenant farmers, and then they had to work in the land of these large land estate where the landowners are not paying taxes to the imperial government, and then combine that. At the end of the Eastern Han Dynasty, there was a plague. There was a serious pandemic. Like now, and of course, Eastern Han Dynasty government is nowhere equipped to handle the pandemic like the current Chinese government. So the plague wiped out a large portion of the population, and it seriously weakened even further the imperial control. And then the power get devolved into those the powerful gentries in the countryside. And eventually, when Yellow Turban Rebellion broke out, the imperial government didn't have the financial strength to muster an army to put down the rebellion. So it actually called the local gentries to form their own militias to put down the rebellion.
It's always the beginning and the end, isn't it?
Yes, that led to warlordism, of course, and soon these different warlords start to fight for power, and that led to the Three Kingdoms period, which is a particularly tumultuous era in China. To give a context, during the population census at the height of Eastern Han Dynasty, there were 65 million people on the census. Of the imperial registrar, and by the end of Three Kingdoms period, when Three Kingdoms were finally reunified, like 100 years later, there were only 15 million people that could be found to be registered on census.
Yeah, it was an incredible dieback. I mean, that's World War II territory, but just in China of the 2nd century. It's astonishing.
Yeah, well, not. It doesn't mean like 50 million people just perish. It also means like the control was the ability of government to collect census data was also collapsing, because a lot of people simply flee to areas outside the imperial control, or they become basically kind of indentured servants to large powerful landowners who hide the numbers of their followers so they don't have to pay taxes. So basically, yeah. But you also, even though it doesn't mean 50 million people die, but still a significant part of the population have perished, and that gives you an idea how chaotic the time was. And out of this very chaotic period came out the saga of the Three Kingdoms, which is well-told story. It's has been popular in East Asia for hundreds of years, if not thousands. In particular during the Ming Dynasty, the one author Luo Guanzong finally he put the collection of story together and put it into a historical novel, the Romance of Three Kingdoms, and that gained immense popularity in China, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, all the areas that were influenced by Chinese culture. And it became an all-time classic. I think a lot of people today in the West know about Three Kingdoms because they play
Dynasty Warriors
the game. Dynasty Warriors, exactly.
Yeah, so
that did more to go ahead. That did more to popularize the saga of Three Kingdoms more than anything else in the West.
I would say, Carl, I have read the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, obviously an English translation, and then when I started playing Dynasty Warriors, it was actually very exciting. It was like, oh, finally I'm getting faces and a little bit more emotional detail to the book. But so I have read the book, which I gather it was a compilation of a lot of regional storytellings, almost a lot of oral traditions, which gave different emphasis in different regions. So obviously in Western China, there was a lot more about how great the Kingdom of Shu was, and in the north, the Kingdom of Wei was more heroic, and this was sort of centralizing all of that narrative.
Well, there was so the story of Three Kingdoms, was first recorded down as history in the records of Three Kingdoms. That was part of the 24 history of the Chinese annals. But the record of Three Kingdom is kind of dry.
Yes.
It just tells about events, what happened, who killed who, and. But from then, there's a lot of folklore start to grow around the Three Kingdoms period, and there's different interpretations. For example, like the role of Sun Jian, who we're going to talk about, the Sun family.
Yep.
The Sun family's role got real seriously nerfed in the popular retelling. People get upset at the Romance of Three Kingdoms author. They thought he didn't give enough due to the Sun family, but actually he was trying to readdress the centuries of like the folkloric tradition where the Sun family has been kind of put down basically compared to the other clans, and he tried to do justice to Sun Jian, not as much as he didn't bring it up to kind of to match the historical records, but he did his best. He did his best.
It's a funny one because in a lot of the popular retellings, Sun Jian's a very big character, but when you actually get into the narrative, he was dead before almost all of it happened. His role really is as the patriarch of the bigger family.
Yes, but he is important because, basically the Sun family legacy starts with him.
Yeah.
Before Sun Jian, he was just. I think his family is part of local gentry, but in a way that's not really remarkable. There were a lot of gentries back then. But maybe we can just get to the story right now.
Yeah,
right
absolutely.
Then? Yeah. So Sun Jian is a very remarkable young man. He. As I mentioned, he came from the gentry, and the event that made his name is one day him and his father were traveling on the road, and they came upon bandits robbing merchants, and so the people his father's followers all got scared and was hesitating to move forward, but he took a look and he told his father, like, look, these bandits, our numbers are few, they're very disorganized, now they're concentrating on looting. This is an opportunity to defeat them. And his father looked at him like he's crazy, like this is beyond your ability. But Sun Jian ignored his father. He grabbed a sword. He jumped on the river dike. So these are river pirates. They are looting the merchants on the river. So basically they're dividing up the spoil on the riverbank at this point. And Sun Jian jumped on the river dike and waving his sword, pretending he's like a commander leading a troops charging forward. So the bandits thought the imperial troops have come around, and so they all fled. And then Sun Jian ran up grabbed the slow running one of the slow running pirate, stabbed him, cut off his head, and for that Sun Jian was only 17 years old at the time, and that he made his name, and from there on he was promoted to be like a local garrison commander, and pretty soon after that the Yellow Turban Rebellion broke out. And Sun Jian was tasked to raise an army. Like I mentioned earlier, the local gentries are tasked to raise militia to suppressing the rebellion. So Sun Jian had this opportunity to raise basically his own personal army to defeat the Yellow Turban Rebellion. And he was quite of a character because like during the Battle of Wanchen, which is an important city in central China, in Henan, Sun Jian led his own troops. He was first to climb the city wall and taking the city of Wanchen. So Sun Jian just keep on his star keep on rising. He was being promoted from garrison commander to a deputy magistrate, and pretty soon he was being promoted to like a prefectural commander. But at this point, the imperial government is just granting titles, basically, because
it's pretty much the only power they've got from the imperial government, isn't it? Is to bestow titles and awards and give some sort of sense of keeping score amongst the rival warlords.
Exactly, because Sun Jian himself, not only he has to raise his own army, but he has to find a way to pay for them. And at this point, he was also I'm talking about in real history now. So in real history, there was also a big coup, not a coup, but a mutiny in Liangzhou, which is the western part of China, on the Silk Road, by the general Han Sui, and the imperial court sent Dong Zhuo, the famous later well-known tyrant, sent Dong Zhuo to as a general to deal with it, but Dong Zhuo didn't make much progress. So the imperial court sent another general, Zhang Wen, and Sun Jian went as Zhang Wen invited Sun Jian to come with him because Sun Jian already made his name. And at that time, Zhang Wen also ordered Dong Zhuo to join them for the suppression of the mutiny. But Dong Zhuo waited a long time, took his sweet time. So Zhang Wen, at this time, when Dong Zhuo finally made it to Zhang Wen's camp, Zhang Wen, give Dong Zhuo a tongue lashing, and Sun Jian was standing by the side. So later, Sun Jian told Zhang Wen's like, look, this is an opportunity for you, just seize Dong Zhuo and kill him, because he first he violated a direct military order to march his troops directly, and two, he not only he disobeyed your command, he basically disrespected you, and that's enough for you to execute him according to military order. And this also will help you to build your own prestige, your to instill discipline among the troops. But Zhang Wen was a weak man. He couldn't follow the advice and let Dong Zhuo go. So this story in the Romance of Three Kingdoms got turned around, and the role of Sun Jian was taken by Zhang Fei, right? The other famous. Mm-hmm. Yep. So
one of the three brothers from the Western Kingdom. Yep.
Yeah, so Romance of Three Kingdoms story is actually based on a lot on the history, but sometimes they change the names around to emphasize one faction over the other. And so Sun Jian really got the shaft, and he because he did a lot of things before he died at an early age. And then in Changsha there was rebellion breaking out basically all over China, and in Changsha there was a rebel leader that was besieging the city of Changsha, which is in Hunan, the capital of Hunan province today. Mm-hmm. And so the imperial court actually made Sun Jian the prefect of Changsha and asking him to defend the city. And Sun Jian went down there, and within several years, he pacified the rebellion and really like basically everyone was just in awe of this person. Like Sun Jian could do no wrong. By the time that Dong Zhuo became a tyrant, became a usurper essentially, the alliance of warlords was formed to overthrow Dong Zhuo, and Sun Jian again was a vanguard to defeat Dong Zhuo. And at that time, as I mentioned before, Sun Jian, he has to provision his own troops and recruit. So by the time when he was marching toward central China, toward the capital Luoyang to fight Dong Zhuo, he went he was asking the local officials, magistrate, to provide him with provisions, and and he wasn't making much progress because like the local magistrates, they're basically essentially warlords within their own domain. They didn't want to give
they wanted the food for themselves. Yeah.
Exactly. They don't want to give food to the passing army. So what Sun Jian did was he sent the local magistrates some gift. Then as a kind of, as per Chinese custom, the local magistrate had to reciprocate by coming to the camp to thank him. And then Sun Jian hosted a banquet. During the banquet, he suddenly gave the order to seize the local magistrate and listed his crime for not to provision for imperial troops and execute him on the spot.
Just
and
out of
again,
interest,
from then on.
Sorry, Carl. How big a breach of protocol is it to attack someone who's come for your hospitality? Because in some cultures that would be a really big deal.
Yes, but not in China. I mean, not well in the time when the Han Dynasty was a fully functional government.
Yeah.
What Sun Jian did is basically rebellion. He's killing a official appointed by the imperial court. But by this point in China was
no one cares.
Basically free for all. Yeah, it's free for all. So that's why Sun Jian was able to do the thing he did, and that's also why he was able to rise very rapidly among the ranks. Because before China, even among the gentry dominant societies, there's a very strict hierarchy, right? Like people like the Yuan family, they have a lot of prestige. They serve the imperial court for generations. They would have a lot of power, and people like Sun Jian is from like the lower gentry. Like they would not have much prospect to rise through the ranks. But this rebellion and the breakdown of the order actually gave a lot of opportunity for ambitious men like Sun Jian, and also Cao Cao is the same case. And so
I'd say Liu Bei in the Kingdom of Shu was certainly presented as a real social mobility of the time.
Yes, he was a strawman sandal peddler. I mean, that's a quite a rise. And so Sun Jian really made a name for himself, and he was actually the main force that really posed a threat to Dong Zhuo and Lu Bu. By the way, Lu Bu was kind of the warrior of the three kingdoms, but Sun Jian actually managed to defeat Lu Bu in battle. But the alliance that put together, the anti-Dong Zhuo alliance, was more interested to fight over power than care about evicting Dong Zhuo from the capital. So when Sun Jian was making all this progress, defeating Dong Zhuo's troops, I skip important details. When Sun Jian made it to the alliance camp, he formed alliance with the Yuan family, particularly Yuan Su of the Yuan family. As I mentioned before, Yuan family is this very prestigious lineage. They have served the Han court for many, many generations. They are a large, prestigious clan in their own locality.
That's up in the northeast, isn't it? Almost near Korea?
Yes.
Yep.
No, not that far. Okay. Like about around Beijing.
Gotcha.
Right, like so, the area in Hebei province, and the Yuan family has two prominent leaders at this point. One is Yuan Sao, one is Yuan Su. They're actually brothers. They're actually half brothers. But Yuan Sao was the elder of the two. And he was born from a concubine. He wasn't born from a main wife. So he was adopted out of the family at an early age. He was given to he was given to like his father's older brother who didn't have a son to be an heir. So Yuan Shao became by chance became the heir to the senior branch of the Yuan family, and Yuan Su, the younger brother, but from the main wife, became kind of the junior branch leader of the junior branch. Right, so there's a little bit of rivalry between these two brothers because Yuan Su felt like his older brother is born from a lowly concubine, doesn't deserve his exalted position as a leader of the senior branch of the family. And but at the time, Sun Jian made a pact with Yuan Su. So Yuan Su will provide him with provision and reinforcement. When Sun Jian was making all the progress defeating Lu Bu and Dong Zhuo, some Yuan Su's advisor told him, "Look, now Sun Jian is making a name for himself. Now all the glory goes to Sun Jian. If you let this continue, Sun Jian will be a bigger threat than Dong Zhuo himself." So Yuan Su listened to this advice and he withheld the grains, withheld provisions, and without food, Sun Jian's troops suffered and they were defeated by Lu Bu.
It's really like a very advanced game of Survivor, isn't it?
Exactly. It is a free fall, and so Sun Jian came back and he was very indignant. He told Yuan Su, "Look, like I am fighting for your family's honor because Yuan family at this time, like I mentioned, Yuan family had a lot of members in the court, and when Dong Zhuo took the capital Luoyang, he held them hostage." And when the Yuan brothers led their coalition against Dong Zhuo, he killed all the Yuan family members in the capital. So Sun Jian says, "I'm here to avenge your family, and you are doing this. You are stabbing me in the back. How can you face yourself?" So Yuan Su was felt ashamed, and he gave Sun Jian more food, and Sun Jian went back to the battle. He actually defeated. So in real history, Sun Jian killed the general Hua Xiong. Like in the Romance of Three Kingdoms, killing Hua Xiong became like the debut of Guan Yu, right?
Oh yeah, the god of war.
Yes. So Guan Yu got the honor. I mean that's why a lot of people felt like Sun Jian got shafted in the Romance of Three Kingdoms. Mm-hmm. So he killed the Dong Zhuo's general Hua Xiong and forced Dong Zhuo to abandon capital Luoyang and flee to Chang'an. But at this point, before leaving, Dong Zhuo burned the whole city. And when Sun Jian led his troops into the capital, it was basically all ruins. It was an empty shell of itself. And again, this is the time that the other coalition members felt they already evicted Dong Zhuo from the capital.
Job done.
They're not interested in pursuing Dong Zhuo to Chang'an, and also at this critical juncture, the friction between the Yuan brother broke out. The hostility broke out in the open. So Yuan Shao, the leader of the senior branch of the Yuan family, he wanted to prop up another emperor. He has his own candidate that he want to prop up. He said this man is a good man. He's gentle, exemplary Confucian. We should make him the new emperor. But Yuan Su felt the Yuan Shao's candidate was already fully adult, and that's someone they would not be able to control. So he was against his brother's decision. And then later, one thing led to another. The two brothers' hostility actually broke out in the open warfare, and Yuan Shao and Yuan Su start. So while Yuan Su sent Sun Jian to fight Dong Zhuo, Yuan Shao sent his own generals trying to take Sun Jian's turf, take Sun Jian's city, and when Sun Jian is kind of sort of in the Yuan Su's camp. So then the whole coalition against Dong Zhuo just fell apart, and the war, the full blown warlordism began. The Yuan brothers started the fighting first.
Yeah.
At that point. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the really interesting things in this whole period is that the factions that succeed are the ones that stick together.
Yes. Group solidarity is so important.
Yeah.
And And at this point, so Yuan Shu, in order to counter his brother, Yuan Shao, he decided to expand southward, and he sent Sun Jian to go south to attack attack the prefect of Jin Prefecture, Liu Biao, and
Now,
because Liu Biao made up.
Is Jing a really important province? Because it seems important.
Yes, Jin is huge. Jin Prefecture is huge at the late Han Dynasty. It covers the present-day Henan Province, Hubei Province, Hunan Province, and little bit goes south as far as like Guangdong Province and little bit Guangxi Province. It's a huge area. Granted, back then the population in China was still mostly in northern China. North of Yellow River. But already because of war, the migration already coming to south. A lot of Chinese from the northern China start to settle down in the Yangtze River Valley area, and which we will talk about because we're going to talk about naval battle on the Yangtze River.
Yeah.
And the Jing province is very critical because it's sitting right in the middle of China, right? So it's like it's a crossroad, so Wuhan today, a lot of people know Wuhan, unfortunately because of pandemic, Wuhan is sitting at the center of the Jing province, and it's also at the center of China. So it's like even today Wuhan is a transportation hub.
Yeah, I've traveled through it. It's it's a shame it's going to be known for the virus for a long time, unfortunately, because it's an important city in its own right.
Yeah, and that's why Jing province is important, and everyone wants a piece of it. And Yuan Shu sent Sun Jian, the basically undefeated general, to take on Liu Biao. So Liu Biao then sent his trusted general Huang Zu to counter Sun Jian. Now Sun Jian is a very capable general. He was able to defeat Huang Zu easily. But Sun Jian has a problem is that he is fearless to the point of recklessness, and he always lead his troops in the front. And even in the Yellow Turban Rebellion period, there was one time he was leading the charge against the Yellow Turban rebels, but he's because he has a horse, so he soon left his infantry behind, and he ran into the thickest of the enemy, and he got shot from his horse. And then he had to hide among the grass. Only when his horse ran back to the camp and leading his followers to where he was hiding was he rescued. So he had this kind of history of charging ahead, like damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead kind of reputation. And again, when he defeated Huang Zu, he led the pursuit. And then Huang Zu laid an ambush for him in a valley. Huang Zu had his underling set up a trap in basically a mountain valley. When Sun Jian came, they throw down the stones, and one of the stones hit Sun Jian's head and killed him instantly. And that basically brought a big dent into the Sun family fortune, because up to this point, the Sun family is right up and up. But at the time of Sun Jian's death, his son was still I think maybe just in the early teens, and his oldest son Sun Ce was in his early teens, was still very young. So Sun Jian's nephew. Sun Jian's not his nephew, his cousin. Sun Jian's cousin then took the rest of the troops, and they went to join Yuan. They went to join Yuan Shu, became Yuan Shu's camp followers, basically. Not camp followers, became Yuan Shu's followers.
Yep.
And so Sun Ce, when he grew up in the camp of Yuan Shu, and he was very fierce. He kind of inherited the same trait from his father. He would always leading the charge in the front, and he became one of Yuan Shu's favorite generals. So Yuan Shu will send him against like the various warlords around around the region, and Yuan Shu became a major power in kind of the southeastern China. But at the same time, Yuan Shu made a lot of promises to Sun Ce. Like every time he sent Sun Ce to take a city, he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna make you the governor of this area." And then as soon as Sun Ce take it over, Yuan Shu gave the command to his own man, right? So Sun Ce felt he was being shafted by Yuan Shu too many times.
Yeah.
And at this point, also there was another rival warlords in southeast. There was the imperial court sent another person, not like a person who is actually from the imperial lineage, to be in charge of the southeast, and he actually managed to wrest control of a large part of the territory from Yuan Shu's men, and particularly from relative of Sun Ce. Those areas were guarded by Sun Ce's uncles. Sun Ce.
So I was going to ask about that. The Sun family definitely had a lot of roots down there in that Jing province area, even before this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's where they came from. So
yeah.
So Sun Ce, he built a lot. He had a reputation. He had a lot of followers before his early death, and Sun Ce saw this as an opportunity, and he went to Yuan Shu. He pretended, say, like, I am going to help you deal with this problem, and Yuan Shu gave him several thousand men, and with this several thousand men, Sun Ce went down there, joined up forces with his uncles, his friends, and soon he gathered an army of 5,000, and then he started his war of conquest in the southeast region. This is the area of Yangtze River, near like the mouth of Yangtze River. So from the area from Shanghai to Nanjing. On the lower reach of the Yangtze River Delta area, and very soon he took over a large area, and he became no longer rely on Yuan Shu. He has his own power base now. He can provision his own troops. And at the same time, Yuan Shu was entertaining dream of grandeur. He wanted. So when Sun Ce's father Sun Jian went to Luoyang, he founded the imperial seal in Luoyang.
Do you think he actually did? I've always thought this was Sun family propaganda.
So there's a lot of different records about the Three Kingdoms.
Yeah.
It's from one source claims that Sun family found the imperial seal, but the Yuan Shu was holding Sun Jian's wife as hostage and forced Sun Jian to give up the imperial seal to him.
Yeah,
that's one story. And the other story is that Sun Ce used imperial seal as a collateral to borrow troops from Yuan Shu. That's another version. That's a version that's presented in the Romance of Three Kingdoms. And so Yuan Shu did possess in real history. Yuan Shu did possess imperial seal, and then he decided, okay, well that must means I have the mandate of heaven, and so he decided to entertain the idea of becoming emperor himself. In fact, he did declare himself emperor, and that actually made him the target of all the warlords. Now everybody. Yeah. Now everybody have a legitimate reason to attack him. So it was a stupid move. So Yuan Shu was at that point, Sun Ce broke his official ties with Yuan Shu, because Yuan Shu now is a traitor. And in fact, Sun Ce joined Cao Cao, Liu Bei, Yuan Shao, and pretty much everybody to attack Yuan Shu. So Yuan Shu was defeated. He ran out of provisions. His army collapsed, and at that point he decided, okay, maybe it's time for me to make up with my big brother, and because he still have the imperial seal. He took his imperial seal. He was going to join his big brother, but Liu Bei's troops blocked him his northward path, and eventually Yuan Shu died of starvation. It was
It's an ignominious end.
yes, 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 and but in contrast to that, Sun Ce has become a major power. But at this time, a lot of the former Yuan Shu followers they wanted to join Sun Ce because they had served time together. They felt like they could their lot is probably improved by joining Sun Ce. But
Well, no,
but
no one wants to go back to the farm, do they, at this point? So you've got to pick a winner.
Exactly. And so, okay, so but but Sun Ce is on the south side of the Yangtze River. To get to Sun Ce, they have to cross the Yangtze, and on the north side of the Yangtze River, there's a prefect of Lujiang. Now, Lujiang is this area around modern day Anhui, the area along the Yangtze River, like the area in Anqing. The prefect Liu Yao was a former subordinate of Yuan Shu, and because he was a loyal retainer of Yuan Shu, that area was first taken over by Sun Ce for Yuan Shu. So Yuan Shu sent Sun Ce to take over that area first and promised Sun Ce that he will make him the governor. But then he turned around and gave that area to Liu Yao. So Sun Ce and Liu Yao had this beef going way back. And now Liu Yao is preventing the former Yuan Shu followers from crossing the river to join Sun Ce. And instead, he took their men and made himself even more powerful. So the showdown is about to begin between Sun Ce and Liu Yao. But Sun Ce has also other enemies. One of the enemy that he never forgotten is the general who killed his father, Huang Zhu, right? The general under Liu Biao. And Huang Zhu is guarding a very important area, Jiangsha. So the Jiangsha area is basically around the present day Wuhan area.
Gotcha.
Right. So the reason the Wuhan is so important, that's where the Yangtze River came out of the Three Gorges. It widens considerably, and it's joined by one of the main tributary, Han River. So the Han River from the north joins the Yangtze River right at the junction of Wuhan. And back in back in 2,000 years ago, there was no high-speed rail, there's no motorways, so the fastest, most reliable way of travel is river travel. That's the water transport is so important, especially in the southern China. So that's why the junction of Han River and Yangtze River at Wuhan was so important, and it was guarded by Huang Zhu.
I would also
he was.
Sorry, Carl. I'd also just say that it's incredibly striking. These days, the Yangtze's navigable, certainly up as far as Chongqing and possibly further. But you need a lot of power to get, because it's a very fast-flowing river in that stretch down to the Three Gorges. Whereas below that, where it widens out, is certainly much easier for road vessels to still be able to move around.
Like large vessels can travel now up the Three Gorges because after because the People's Republic of China, they blow up all the rapids in the Three Gorges, and now they have the Three Gorges Dam, so they raise the water level. You can people can go online and check out the water locks on the Three Gorges Dam. It's a pretty amazing piece of engineering. They allowed there was actually a big water level differential between the reservoir and the Yangtze River downstream.
Yeah.
But at the Wuhan, it sits Huang Zhu. Huang Zhu was rewarded with a governorship at Jiangsha because he killed Sun Ce's father, Sun Jian, and Sun Ce never forget that, and he was planning to take on Huang Zhu. But before taking on Huang Zhu, he has to take care of like this Liu Yao in his back, because Liu Yao is getting preventing all these people from joining him, and it was getting powerful. So Sun Ce did this thing. He sent a lot of gifts to Liu Yao. He said, "Hey, why don't you attack this place Sangliao? Because the gentries in I have some familial ties with the gentries in Sangliao, so it's not proper for me to take them on. But You on the other hand, you have no ties. You should take them. And Liu Yao thought that was a good idea, and so he took most of his army to attack Sangliao, and the gentry at Sangliao did a scorched earth policy, basically leave nothing for Liu Yao's army, and Sangliao has a very strong wall, so Liu Yao couldn't take it for a long time. And when Sun Ce was already on the way to attack Huangzhou at this point, when he heard the news that Liu Yao actually took the bait to attack Sangliao, and he was ecstatic. He ordered his troops around, personally led his troop to attack Liu Yao's headquarters around the area Anqing, and Liu Yao was caught by surprise, and this Sun Ce won a great battle. He captured 30,000 of Liu Yao's followers. At this time, he was in command of both sides of the Yangtze River. His domain doubled, and he also captured among the captives was two very beautiful young women, the two Chao. So he married the older one, the Da Chao.
Very much a high point of Dynasty Warriors is the two sisters, but yeah.
Yeah, among the captive was two very beautiful women, so he decided, okay, I'm gonna marry the older one, Da Chao, and his friend and commander Zhou Yu married the younger one, Xiao Chao, and the two Chao are supposedly one of the most beautiful women in the Three Kingdoms, and with this new victory, now he can concentrate on Huangzhou, and Liu Yao didn't immediately So what Liu Yao did after his headquarters got taken over is actually he fled westward. He fled westward to join Huangzhou and ask for aid from Liu Biao. Liu Biao is like the overlord of Huangzhou, right? And so of course Liu Biao has no interest to see Sun Ce become a very powerful regional hegemon right next door. So he sent Huangzhou to deal with this, and so Huangzhou sent his own son, leading 5,000 troops to join Liu Yao to try to take back Liu Yao's force from Sun Jian, but from Sun Ce, I'm sorry, and this area is basically so this stretch of this is all like we're all talking about on the like the troop movement is all along the Yangtze River here, and the area is between modern day Anhui and Hubei, right? So little bit east of Wuhan.
Yeah.
And this area is so Sun Ce just sailed his troops up the Yangtze River. He met the combined forces of Huangzhu's son and Liu Xun. Wait, this is not Liu Xun, sorry, I keep on saying Liu Yao. This is Liu Xun, sorry. Anyway, yeah. So Liu Xun and Huangzhu's 5,000 navy were decisively defeated. There's not too much. Unfortunately, the historical record is kind of very brief. It just says the Sun Ce won a great victory, and then Liu Xun at this point lost all hope of recovering his former territory, so he just went north and surrendered to Cao Cao, defected to Cao Cao. And Huang Ce also withdrew, so he didn't get captured. But in this battle, Sun Ce captured 2,000 troops and 1,000 warships. So this is a pretty significant victory. And
sorry, can you run me through those? Sorry, Carl, can you run me through those numbers again?
Okay, I'm gonna talk about the reliability of the numbers later, but
sure.
according to what Sun Ce himself said, is that he captured 2,000 soldiers and 1,000 warships.
That seems an odd combination to have that many warships and that few soldiers. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And when we can we talk briefly about the warships now? So we've got two main types: the Menchong.
Mm-hmm.
Is that pronouncing that okay?
Mengchong.
Menchong. Okay.
Yeah.
Mengchong. Okay. Which also apparently means covered assaulter, and it's a single-masted oared vessel. But it's got some protection from arrows for the oarsmen and the crew in terms of it's got a roof, and apparently there's a lot of leather to keep the arrows out.
Mm-hmm.
And then the larger one, the Dong Zhuo.
Dong Jian.
Okay. Yeah. Which is a much bigger version and probably looks to my eyes in the models I've seen, and I'll put this on the screen for our video viewers. It looks roughly where a Mediterranean quinquereme of the period would have been in terms of size. So it's quite a large vessel, but two-masted and lots of oars for getting around the river. Probably would have got a few hundred people onto certainly the bigger ones though.
Yeah. There's actually a third type of ship called Lou Chuan, literally a towering ship.
Okay.
And that has like many decks on board, and it's much larger and usually serve as a flagship for the commanders.
Mm-hmm.
But Lou Chuan is rarely used in actual battle because at that time, they're still trying to figure out the balance of have such a kind of lopsided, like top-heavy ship.
Yep.
Because the problem with Lou Chuan is during a heavy storm or heavy wind, it's very easily topple over.
Yeah.
And that actually happened in one of the Three Kingdoms battles. So Lou Chuan sometimes it's usually have a commander who sit in the back so he can see the battlefield and then issue command, but not actually participating in actual battle.
Well, if you're relying on signal flags, that towering position has a lot of other advantages as well. Then, if your lieutenants and troops are looking to see the signal flags, then the height comes in. But certainly in the Mediterranean of this period, they did have enormous super ships, but they weren't actually that useful in a fight because they were too big and too unwieldy, and so it sounds like similar solutions. The one big difference with this riverine warfare is they're not using rams, which was a real hallmark of Mediterranean warfare, and I've got a sneaking suspicion that had to do with fundamentally you're never very far from the shore in riverine warfare, and so it could be that ramming a ship wasn't going to knock the troops out in the same way. But anyway, so that's a little bit on the ships involved. So what more can you tell us about the battle, Carl?
Okay, so the first battle, unfortunately, we don't have much historical source to go about. But this is just a warm up for Sun Ce because his real goal is to take his revenge on Huang Zhu for killing his father, and also on top of that, Huang Zhu occupy, as we said, a very important hub, very important point. If they capture the area around Wuhan, basically Sun Ce will be able to cut the Jin prefecture into half. Right, so half of Jin prefecture is above Wuhan, half of Jin prefecture is down below. So if he can capture Wuhan, basically he can just easily take over the southern half of the Jin prefecture. Liu Biao wouldn't be able to send reinforcement down the Han River.
Yeah, and it's interesting throughout the whole Three Kingdoms period, the Sun family were basically unbeatable on the river. They certainly lost in plenty of other places, but the fact that these generals trying to fight naval battles against the Sun family, which was very good at fighting on the river, it kept them in the game probably much longer than they would have otherwise.
Yeah, I think because by this time, kind of the naval warfare already specialized. Like and especially in the climate of China is drastically different from north to south. The northern China is a lot drier and it's mostly plains.
Yep.
I remember when I traveled to northern China for the first time in 2010, the scenery I saw from the high-speed train outside the window just looks like look like American Midwest. I mean, it's flat. It's a lot of corns and
Corn and wheat.
sorghum.
Yeah.
Yeah, corn and wheat, and and whereas south is whole different ecosystem. It's a lot of rivers and canals, a lot of rice paddies, and then so like the people in the north are not, a lot of them may have never seen like larger body of water before. And Yangtze River actually gets pretty big. Like once you emerge out of the Three Gorges area, and particularly after the Han River joins it at Wuhan, the Yangtze River became pretty wide at that point.
Yeah.
People can Google online, see the. So at this point, that river and navy became very important to either to guard guard territories. As I mentioned before, in southern China, the most reliable transport is water transport.
Yeah.
And you need to have a navy.
Yeah. Anywhere you go in the world, if you want to move lots of heavy things, it's a lot easier on water than it is any other way, and that's kind of where naval warfare comes from. Yeah.
Yeah, and also if you don't have a strong navy, people can just easily sail down the Yangtze River and capture all the city along the way.
Yep.
So it's imperative if you want to hold down to your territory for the Sun family to develop a strong navy.
Yep.
And so at this point, Sun Ce already scored a victory. Then he planned to press on his momentum and to keep on marching, because basically sail westward to attack Huangzu's base in Jiangsha, which is modern day Wuhan.
Yep.
And and as I said, this this is an existential threat for Liu Biao, the warlord who controlled the Jin prefecture. So Liu Biao sent his own nephew Liu Hu, with 5,000 spearmen to act as Huangzu's spear guard to help to Huangzu to fight. And Huangzu Sun Ce now his fleet have sailed to Sasha. Now Sasha is the modern, like the Sasha would be today a district of modern day Wuhan, because Wuhan, a city, have expanded out so much in the last decades.
Yeah.
But before, Sasha would be its own it's like own standalone town. But because Wuhan really became Wuhan in more recent history, in the 20th century, because before Wuhan is actually three cities: Wuchang, Hanyang, and Hankou, because the Yangtze and the Han River kind of carved the area into different pieces. And before 1950s, there was not even a bridge across the Yangtze River. So essentially, they're like, they only built a I think PRC, with the help of Soviet Union, finally built their first Yangtze bridge at Wuhan in the mid 1950s. And that also give you an idea like how big the Yangtze River is, because at that time it was considered like an engineering marvel to build the first Yangtze River bridge, and the Sun Ce now the Battle of Sasha doesn't get a lot of respect. I mean, certainly not in Romance of Three Kingdoms.
Yeah, there's almost nothing in English language sources, which is one of the reasons I reached out for your help on this, because it's ludicrous how little it's got considering its significance. But yeah,
I'm actually surprised you even know about it. I was like, what? We're going to talk about Battle of Sasha. I mean, not even many Chinese people know about it, because there's not many Chinese historical resource on this. And in fact, the most detailed historical resource on Battle of Sasha is from Sun Ce himself, is in his memorial to the emperor, where he describes the battle. But I mean, if Sun Ce were to be believed, this is actually a pretty significant battle. So on the on the 4th year of Jian is a reign year of the Han Emperor. On the 4th year of Jian, in the December, the 12th month, 8th day of the 12th month. So this is in the winter time, obviously. Sun Ce finally arrived at Shaxian, and the Huangzu's army also arrived at around the same time. And after they face off for 3 days, and on the 11th day of the 12th month morning, Sun Ce himself he led his troops, all his generals, to attack Huangzu, and to encourage his troops. Sun Ce got on the deck of his flagship, and he beat the drums to encourage his troops, and they started to so this is I'm translating basically from Sun Ce's own memorial to the emperor about the battle. They use fire and fire arrows, and to Sun Ce's advantage, the wind is blowing from their back. They literally they're literally selling they literally got the wind on their back. So they use fire arrows and use a lot of crossbows. And according to Sun Ce's memorial, he said the arrows fell like rain. And because of the wind, that the wind really helped a lot. And Sun Ce's army had a lot of advantage. So the ships that we mentioned, they're not only have oars, but they also usually have 1 or 2 or 3 masts.
Yep.
Right. So with the help of the so even though they're sailing upstream, but with the help of the wind, the Sun's navy just push ahead, and they also have larger ships than Huangzu, which play a huge which is a big advantage in naval battle when you have bigger ships.
Particularly when it's mostly about arrow exchanges and then boarding actions. If you can just have more troops on the ship, you're going to have a big advantage.
Exactly. So they in this description of the battle, they didn't say how they didn't say how they set the fire. They just said like the fire was everywhere. The smoke covered the surface of the river. But in the later, after Three Kingdoms period, there are mentions of navy battles where they use molten iron. They throw molten iron to enemy ships. I don't know if that was I don't know if that was done here because this is.
Yeah, I mean, red hot shot is a staple of naval warfare up until the ironclads finally shut it down. If you can keep the forges on the ships to heat the stuff, it's very powerful. But you can also set fire to your own ship.
Yes, yes, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
So according to this, because the Sun family troops' morale is very high, they have the advantage of the weather, and they very, very quickly push through. And according to Sun Ce's own memorial to the emperor, they killed Liu Biao's, the warlord Liu Biao's nephew Liu Hu and his general Han Xi, and they beheaded 2,000 Huangzu's soldiers and 10. Did I say 2,000? No, 20,000.
Wow.
They said they killed 20,000. They beheaded 20,000. They got 20,000 heads, and then 10,000 soldiers.
How do you store them all?
Yeah, 10,000 soldiers were drowned in the river, and they captured Huangzu's family, and they also captured 6,000 warships, lots of treasure. Only Huangzu himself were able to ran to safety. And so maybe now is the time to talk about the number, because 30,000 casualty, that's a very stunning number, right? Now this is the time I'm going to put in the caveat. We are hearing this from Sun Ce himself. He sent in a memorial to the emperor. It's basically almost like a touting sheet. Look what have I done, right?
Yeah.
So there's no way for the imperial court to verify the actual battle.
Yeah.
I mean, my rule in this is if the numbers are unbelievable, divide by 10. Divide by 10. So I think 3,000. If they took 2,000 heads and 1,000 soldier drawn, and if they capture 600 ships, I think that's reasonable. I think that's reasonable given the time.
Yeah, I would suspect with the numbers of ships involved that just working off the population of the whole of China at the time, we're talking quite small riverboats being tallied up in the total tally would be part of my guess. It's interesting because a lot of the modern archaeology in the Mediterranean is actually showing that the historians weren't that far off with the numbers they were using. For generations, the people were saying it can't have been that many, and when they find the piles of anchors that they were cutting up for the battle, it's like, oh no, they really had that many ships here.
Wow.
So that's but this is a different cultural context. But I would say that if we're talking thousands of ships or 600 ships or something like that, we're talking quite small riverboats being included in the total tally.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like, this is basically Sun Tzu bragging to the emperor at this point. It's
Sure.
like, look what I did. now give me some titles. Now grant me some titles.
Make titles. Me a duke, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and the imperial court at that point is so far north, and they have no effective control in the south. So there's no way they could verify Sun Tzu's account anyway. But Sun Tzu's version became the official version in the history because that's the only record we have going by. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this battle actually, like, they didn't change Sun Tzu actually didn't take over the territory. So that's an interesting part because even after the battle, we know Huangzu still controlled the Wuhan area. It wasn't until, many years later that Sun Tzu's younger brother, Sun Quan, would have to, do 3 expeditions against Huangzu. And finally, in 208, so basically a full 9 years later, to kill Huangzu and take over the territory. So yeah, that's another reason I think 30,000 troops killed might be an exaggeration because 30,000 troops killed, I'm pretty sure Sun Tzu could take over the territory easily. There will be like nobody left to defend the place.
That is always one of my lie detectors with these naval battles. The Greeks sometimes will say, "Oh, we sailed over to Cyprus and we had a great victory," and then we sailed back immediately, and it's like, well. If your victory had been that good, you probably would have stayed.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is like the first big naval battle of the 3 kingdoms, the Battle of Shaxian. And I'm glad that you chose this battle because this is really a very little known battle, both in English and Chinese, because the only reliable historical resource we have going on is from Sun Tzu, his own words to the emperor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I just wanted to thank you so much for helping explain and setting the scene of this. But it's certainly, this battle did set the scene for the formation of the Kingdom of Wu, I feel, along with obviously other land battles, but in terms of the dominance of the family on the river and splitting that chunk of China out.
Yeah, and also very importantly, the Battle of Shaxian is not that far from the site of the future more famous Battle of Red Cliff, of Cibi, right? So Cibi, Shaxian, all these battles are fought in very close proximity of each other. Because that just tells you kind of the strategic importance of the area. And this is Shaxian is, I hope, is kind of like an appetizer for your audience because
wait till we get to Red Cliffs.
Yeah, the Red Cliff is like the all-time famous, kind of one of the most famous naval battle in Chinese history, and it involve much larger numbers, and you will have much significance like historically.
Yeah, I would say that what I found interesting with your description here was it was no accident that the Sun forces had the benefit of the wind. They obviously knew a lot about the way the winds worked in this part of the world because they keep using it time after time. And the Greeks have a saying that the wind and the waves are on the side of the ablest navigator, which is their way of saying if you think the other side were lucky, that they weren't. They were just better than you.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
All right, Carl, I think we might wrap it up now. I just want to thank you so much for this, and we'll arrange a time to talk about Redcliffe soon.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm super stoked about that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So once again, thank you so much, Carl Zha. I will put a link in the video description to where you can find out more about Carl. Do you want to quickly give a plug to some of your internet vehicles, Carl?
Oh, sure. I'm pretty active on Twitter, so people can just find me on my Twitter handle, Carl Zha, one name. The Carl is spelled with a C. And my but what I really do is my podcast, Silk and Steel Podcast, which is primarily focused on China and surrounding regions, on the history, culture, and politics. And that's why I'm so honored to be invited to talk about Three Kingdoms, because Three Kingdoms is one of other passion of mine. I do intend to do a retelling of the Three Kingdoms from the very beginning to the end. Both combine the telling of Romance of Three Kingdom historical novel, but with also like the contrast to the real historical events. I also on my podcast series, I also I started to do like a chronological retelling of Chinese history from the very beginning. Right now, I'm still at the beginning of Zhou dynasty, which is what, like 3,000 years ago. So I have a long way to go, but I also cover like current events, and also I did one of my series I'm doing right now is Chinese Civil War. I have multiple series going on at concurrently. I'm doing a series on Chinese Civil War, a series on Korean War, and a series on the opium trade and Golden Triangle, which talk about kind of the CIA operation in Southeast Asia, in kind of increasing the opium and heroin production. So that's another interesting little known history of the Cold War. So this is kind of stuff I cover. People
Awesome.
welcome to check it out.
Okay, well,
find me on Patreon. Yes. So check out my Patreon, Silk and Steel podcast on Patreon. That's how I make my living, enable me to support my family in Bali. So,
all right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carl. We will talk soon. It's been fantastic. Thank you so much for your help.
Thank you.